Hi, I'm Paul Fazzone. I'm the General Manager of the Cloud Native team here at VMware. I'm very excited to share with you today that VMware and Pivotal are partnering to co-develop and deliver a new container as a service offering for VMware and Pivotal's customers called the Pivotal Container Service. With me today is James Waters. Hi, James. How are you?
Hey, good to be here.
Thanks for joining us.
Yeah.
Today we're going to talk to you a little bit about what the Pivotal Container Service is and why we think it's going to be a big hit with our customers. So James, let's start with what is the Pivotal Container Service? Can you take a few minutes and tell us about what we're doing here?
Yeah, I mean, you and I have been talking about it for years, so it's kind of fun to bring it in public, but I think the opportunity we both saw was incredible growth in the Kubernetes community, interested in developers using the Kubernetes APIs to run Docker containers and everything they could do with Kubernetes. The problems in the community really had to do with how you stand up the clusters, how you grow them, how you update them, how you network them, how you do day two operations. And so I think what's really unique about our collaboration is we bring together all of the cloud native infrastructure technology we had from Pivotal Cloud Foundry to enable the Kubernetes dial tone.
Yeah, and it's not just Pivotal and VMware collaborating on this, right? I think there's another partner involved.
Yeah. I mean, I think since the start, we've had this project called Kubo, which is an open source project which will continue and grow, I think, enormously, which is Kubernetes on BOSH. Yeah. And BOSH is the way that we've brought cloud native infrastructure to hundreds of major enterprises and had them very successful at scale with containers, with the core Pivotal Cloud Foundry product. We're now bringing that to the Kubernetes ecosystem. I think it's pretty exciting.
Yeah, that's great. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
So, James, around this solution, one of the questions I get a fair bit is what drove or what incented VMware and Pivotal to come together around this solution.
Yeah.
And I think we started seeing the same thing from our customers. You folks from the Pivotal team from the developer side of the house, VMware from the infrastructure side of the house.
Yeah.
We started getting a lot of customers asking us, hey, we need to bring these two worlds together. Right? We need our cloud native application development frameworks to work well in our infrastructure environments. And this started actually with some of the work we did we announced earlier this year around
developer ready
infrastructure, PCF and NSX integration.
Yeah.
But this is really a continuation of that work, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think the dynamic is that when you are in fast moving continuous delivery modes, like what the infrastructure team is doing versus what the dev team is doing has to be tightly coordinated. And I think that has to flow back to how VMware and Pivotal co-engineer this product together, which is one coherent set of developer-ready infrastructure that can move at the speed of modern applications. I think if we weren't joined at the hip on this, you might have an air gap between some of the APIs and the work that we're doing. So that's why it's really exciting that it's a co-developed product.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's one of the problems we hear about from customers today. We've seen customers do a lot of experimenting with different tools, different frameworks.
Yeah.
And a lot of times the same problems come up. Security, visibility. How do I hook this into my existing network policy?
Right.
How do I tie this into my existing operations center so my teams who are already supporting my traditional applications can equally support our company's more modern applications?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's why fitting a container as a service into the existing infrastructure innovations at VMware is really exciting for us. And now to have how many hundreds of thousands of VMware users now immediately able to provision container as a service to all of their users is pretty exciting for us.
How does PKS bring developers and infrastructure teams closer together? One of the questions I get a lot from the customers, VMware customers on the infrastructure side is, my development teams are out there building their own little pockets of infrastructure to support their container experiment. Right? That's usually how it comes up. I had one customer refer to it as, I've got all my development teams building McMansions, and I've got to go figure out how to operate all of them for them. Instead, I want to give them a hotel that they can come in, they can check in, check out whenever they want. They can get different size rooms, painted different colors with different amenities, effectively representing a collection of different frameworks. Because then I can provide them a common infrastructure service and a common set of operational tools and capabilities.
Yeah.
And so we're starting to see that challenge really pop up with development teams as they try to take some of their early stage container-based applications into production.
Yeah.
So from your perspective, James, how does PKS help the work that VMware and Pivotal are doing together around PKS? How does that help bridge that gap?
Well, I mean, I think the first thing is you need to make provisioning and management of a Kubernetes cluster kind of a couple API calls away. And no product in the software market is doing that today. They might provide you some scripting environments or some things that a system administrator might understand, but they're not a few API calls away. And so for teams looking to experiment with what Kubernetes could mean for their project, we're now going to make it as easy as it's ever been in software to stand Kubernetes up. And that's going to eliminate what I've seen, which sometimes 40% of a dev team's time could be spent standing up a container infrastructure. Right. That's not adding value for the business. And you can only, as you said, get away with that experiment for so long.
Right. And so I think this is, the way we've been referring to this internally is this is allowing us to deliver our enterprise customers a Kubernetes dial tone.
Yeah.
Right. And so from your perspective, how would you define that dial tone? What's included in that dial tone service?
Yeah, I mean, I think Google Container Engine and our partnership with the Google folks on Kubo has been very instructive for us. Mm-hmm. And what you see about Google Container Engine is that within a minute you can stand up a cluster of an arbitrary size. Mm-hmm. You can have it auto updated. It has a fully managed operating system. So like when you're using Google Container Engine, you're not actually picking your OS anymore or thinking about the OS. You're just thinking about what container workloads you want to run. And so all of those characteristics of Google Container Engine, embedded OS, self-provisioning, auto-updating, rolling updates for future upgrades are all included in PKS and what we're executing on together.
That's great. And then on the day two side, from an infrastructure operations side, we're bringing to the table deep integration with NSX to support the network connectivity and security policy into the application framework itself. Tools such as VR Ops for visibility and dashboarding into what's actually happening in that environment. Wavefront, so you can do real-time application monitoring. But then there's a bunch of additional services that we're working together to bring to bear to support this service in a much more developer-friendly and holistic way.
Yeah.
You want to talk a little bit about those additional services?
I think one of the things that is also complex when you're setting up Kubernetes is like, how do I get a load balancer into my environment? And I'm very excited about the work we're doing with the NSX roadmap and adding that in a turnkey way over time. And networking within Kubernetes is not simple and turnkey. It by definition requires an overlay network. Right. And so that's where NSX and part of the developer-ready infrastructure push here is just even more payoff collectively for our audiences.
So I think back to the original question of how does PKS help bring developers and infrastructure teams closer together. It does so by eliminating a lot of the manual heavy lifting that takes place on both sides of the aisle and allows them to partner in a much more effective way.
Yeah, I think one thing that's unique about Pivotal is that we really believe developers should write code, and building an environment where they can write the code that changes the business and iterate it out rapidly is our number one mission. And partnering with VMware on the Pivotal container service allows us to up-level some of the work they've been doing in a bespoke way to stand up container environments and just provide that dial tone.
Yeah, and our goal as VMware, we want to help our infrastructure teams and the IT administrators make it easy for developers to write code. So we don't want the infrastructure or the operations of that infrastructure standing in their way. So we want to be able to allow the IT teams to service their developers in a way that's similar to what they can go off and get from a public cloud provider.
I think that's a huge point, which is that we've seen as part of Pivotal Cloud Foundry in general that 70% of that workload is actually just running on VMware. Even though you have total cloud optionality, people really do prefer their private infrastructure if they can get all of the developer-ready features that are there. Right. And so I think PKS just furthers the appeal of the private or hybrid cloud infrastructure for major enterprises.
I think this is actually a very unifying effort for the Dell Technology family of companies. So first off, Pivotal and VMware coming together to deliver this joint solution that brings the best of what Pivotal has to offer, the best of what VMware has to offer to our customers, going in there with one story, one solution, one phone call for support, one set of services around, on the professional services side. Like, this is going to be, I think, very compelling for our customers. But beyond that, this allows us to take this unified offering, and the rest of Dell Technologies will embrace and run with it, right? So this will become
I think that's a big standard, which this is actually a big bet on Dell Technologies of cloud native and container as a service as the next wave, the next front. You've seen, Michael's been incredibly supportive of the growth of, Pivotal Cloud Foundry, and I think he's just as excited about championing, PKS as the standard for all of Dell Tech, container as a service. And I think it makes us the biggest player in container as a service software day one.
Yeah, I agree.